Guys, it has officially happened. Jerami Grant is officially a Portland Trailblazer. The Pistons have traded him to Portland. We're going to get my complete reaction to this trade on today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode today of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast on the road to 3,000 subscribers, continuing to show Locked On that we are the best and fastest growing fan base at the Locked On Network. So just want to give you guys a little update before we get in, just real quick. This episode is going to be posting first. We have 2 episodes today. This episode will be the first episode you guys see on either YouTube or the podcast platforms. Listen to this one. This is my reaction to Jerami Grant. Obviously, you can tell by the title. But right after this episode, we have an episode I recorded with Bryce Simon of Pistons Pulse. Literally, we ended that recording 10 minutes before the news of Jerami Grant broke. So in there, the final segment, we talk about Jerami Grant, whether he'll be traded or not. If you guys don't want to listen to that last segment, that's fine. But the first 2 segments are full of really good stuff about what we think should happen in the draft, who they're going to select, some draft guys that we really like, some possible picks they'd like to get in the mid-round. So make sure you listen to that. The third segment will be about Jerami. If you guys want to listen to it and see how wrong or right we were and how funny that was, go ahead. But that's what's going to be happening. Just be ready for that. Just want to give you guys an understanding of why you're going to see 2 episodes. And sadly, we couldn't get that episode in right before the news. Like, come on. Worst timing ever. All right. Anyways, Jerami Grant has been traded, guys. It's over. Jerami Grant saga in Detroit is officially over. He is heading to the Portland Trailblazers for not much. Now, I already took my victory lap on Twitter because a lot of dudes were starting to get a little crazy out there. A lot of people were talking a little wild about me and started acting like I didn't know what I was talking about. So I took my victory lap, but So I'm not going to do that here. What I want to do is I want to talk about the trade itself first. Then we'll talk about the 2 different directions in the final second and third segments of the podcast. The 2 directions the Pistons could take now because of this trade. But on the first segment, I just want to talk strictly the trade itself. So the Pistons traded Jerami for a 2025 first-round pick that's protected 1 through 4 from Milwaukee. And they got a second-round pick in 2025. And they swapped picks 36 to 46 in the second round this year. So they went from 46 to 36 with Portland. So essentially they got a future first round pick that's in 2025 from it's from Portland, but technically it's Milwaukee's. Another second round pick in 2025, and then swap positions in the second round of this year's draft. So a first and 2 seconds, basically. That's what they got for Jerami Grant. And they didn't take back any salary. They were able to do it within the trade exception that the Portland Trailblazers did create with the CJ McCollum trade. So the Pistons did not take back any salary. They basically just cleared $20 million off their books. They got a future first in 3 years and 2 second-round picks. How do I feel about this? So I've been telling you guys for a long time now, and I've tried to tell everybody that Jerami Grant's value was not what people in the Pistons community was saying it was. I'd been saying that for a long time. People didn't want to believe me. People wanted to complain. Listen, I'm just relaying information that I was under the understanding of. Jerami Grant's value was never that high. They were never going to get a lottery pick, really, unless they took on something else. They weren't going to, in no way in hell, get a top 10 pick. Literally, I got a text. Instantly when this trade went down from somebody, and I got hit with the LOL. Told you Portland was not giving up this number 7 pick for Jerami Grant. I told you. And you guys can go ahead and guess around who you think told me that. But my point is the Pistons were never going to get that high of a draft pick for Jerami Grant. His value was never like that. It just wasn't going to happen, even in a weak draft. So this was the route that Troy Weaver decided to take. Instead of taking maybe a late teens pick, a 20s pick in this year's draft, and taking on salary back, he decided that he would take a few extra picks in the future and just completely clear Jerami Grant's contract off the books and not take anything back, which means the Pistons now, according to Keith Smith of Spotrac, he is reporting that the Pistons will have somewhere around $56 million of cap room. That's more than double whoever's in second place. So they're going to have so much cap room to work with this offseason. It's crazy. It's going to be insane. So on one hand, it depends really what perspective you look at this through. Like if you look at it through, in a certain perspective, you can look at it and say they got a lot of cap space. They basically got Jerami Grant off the books and they got a few picks in the future 3 years down the line for it. So they clear this cap space up to where they can now do basically anything that they want to do in this offseason. And that's a positive. That's certainly a way you can look at it. From an asset standpoint, it definitely was a little bit depressing to the Pistons community. He didn't get a first-round pick. He didn't get a lottery pick. He didn't even get a pick in this year's draft. Well, he got a second round, but didn't even get a first-round pick in this year's draft. And they had been under the assumption, Pistons fans, you guys have been under the assumption that he would at least get a lottery pick. You were under the assumption that he'd at least get a top 20 pick. And it turns out he wasn't even worth that. So from an asset standpoint, it's not great. It's not great at all. And there's definitely going to be some civil wars going on in the Pistons community that I've already seen between people saying this was a terrible trade and this was a great trade. I can see both sides to this. I'm somewhere down the middle. It definitely wasn't a lot of assets. It wasn't great. As of right now, we have to see what he does in free agency or whatever. We'll talk about the two ways he could possibly go. Troy Weaver, that is, he could go with this cap space later on. But as of right now, I can't help but feel like he somewhat fumbled the bag with how he handled this Jerami Grant situation. Now, again, they will feed you. The Pistons will feed you, and reports will feed you that this was the best offer they got. This is what they wanted to do. Yeah, it's the best. It depends. Again, it depends what perspective you're looking at. If your idea was to get a first-round pick in this year's draft, to get first-round picks in next year's draft, then maybe they should have taken offers that they had last year, or maybe in his first year with the Pistons, or in his first offseason with the Pistons. They should have took advantage of his value while it was that high at that point, and they would have got much more than it is right now. So if you're looking through that perspective, you're 100% correct. But again, there's going to be people from a different perspective that say, well, is that really worth – are we sure that clearing up enough cap space where you have $56 million in free agency, are we sure that in and of itself isn't more valuable than what you could have got in last year or before the deadline or in his first offseason, whether it's picks or, you maybe take a pick and a contract back? There's going to be a lot of arguing about what exactly was more value. And for me, it comes down to with what Troy Weaver does with this $56 million in cap space. What he does with that will determine whether this trade and whether Jerami Grant's contract signing 2 years ago and whether his time with Detroit was a waste of time completely and a bad signing, or if he was able to do some magic with it. And we're going to have to wait to see that. Because right now, it was bad on asset management side. He didn't get much for him. He got a first-round pick that's the Milwaukee Bucks, unless Giannis just disappears. It's not going to be high at all. And a few second-round picks for him. It's a depressing return asset-wise. But again, he has a chance. Troy Weaver, he has a chance. I'm going to be fair. He has a chance to try to do something with this $56 million in cap space to make this seem like a good trade. I mean, it all depends on what route he takes there. But to be honest, I'm just happy that the Detroit Pistons did not give him that extension. I've told you guys this multiple times. I don't know if you guys want to believe me now that it's happened, but I'm telling you, teams looked at Jerami Grant as possibly being slightly overpaid, and they looked at him possibly wanting that extension as definitely being overpaid, and teams would not have even – I'm not even sure if the Pistons were able to get this. They definitely wouldn't have been able to fit it under the Portland Trailblazers trade exception, so they wouldn't have been able to just clear his books off the cap like that. And I don't know if they would have even been able to get three future picks, whether it be 2 second rounders or anything, if he was under that contract. That's how teams view Jerami Grant across the league. So I don't know if you guys want to believe that now. I'm just continuing to relay information. But concerning that, I'm just really happy the Pistons did not give him that extension, because that would have been bad. And in the next episode after this one, we recorded with Bryce coming in like an hour after you guys listened to this one. You guys were here in the third segment. I talk about nonstop that if they give him this extension, I will lose it. So in that breath, I'm happy because they didn't do that. And I think that would have been an absolute fireable offense to do. The assets weren't great. However, we have to wait to see what he does with the money, because that could turn out to be a really good – he could do some really good things with that. What could he do with it, though, is what you guys are probably asking me at this point. There's 2 different routes he can go. We'll talk about one route in this upcoming segment, and then the other one in the last segment. But first, I have to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, Arcade 1 Up. We have big news. The one, the only, NBA Jam is back. Arcade 1 Up, the leader in at-home retro arcade games, is not only bringing the best game ever back, but they've made it bigger than ever before because, wait for it, they have now a Shaq Edition machine. Jump clear across the court and set the ball on fire in one of the first sports games ever to feature real and digitized NBA licensed teams. No fouls, no free throws, and no quarters required. Compete with friends and family through all new Wi-Fi leaderboards, making you more connected than ever. Pre-order now from arcade1up.com. That's arcade, the number one, up.com for an estimated early September ship date. Arcade 1 Up is the place for fun. They got even more classic like Golden Tee and my favorite growing up that I played a lot with my cousins, Mortal Kombat, and many others starting at just $399. Check this out though. They are also giving away an NBA Jam Shaq Edition to a Locked On listener. Enter for a chance to win a game console for your man cave at arcade1up.com/lockedon. That's arcade, the number one, up.com/lockedon. You've got till July 8th to enter to win an NBA Jam Shaq Edition console. Don't miss out. Enter today. Who are you going to play with? With Arcade 1 Up. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast on our road to 3,000 subscribers. Continuing to show Locked On, we are the best and fastest growing fan base at the Locked On Network. So there are two possible routes that Troy Weaver can go after acquiring this much cap space in this Jerami Grant trade. The first one is free agency. So now, I'll go ahead and spoil it so you guys know what we're going to be talking about. First one's free agency. The second one's going to be trade market. We'll talk about the trade market in the last segment. But first up is free agency. It's been reported now for the last few months, and now after the trade, it's being reported again that the Detroit Pistons will be going all out after DeAndre Ayton. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing, I think it's a good thing. I've said before over and over that there's only one player in this free agency class that I think the Pistons could overpay for, and I could see them realistically developing to a point to where they're worth that. Basically, I've told you guys this before. The Pistons are going to have to overpay for whoever they sign in free agency, their big free agent. They just have to make sure they make the right one and the one they believe that they can develop into actually being worth that said contract. In this free agency class, the only person I see that being is DeAndre Ayton. So if they want to go all out after him, fine. If he was able to pull DeAndre Ayton from the Phoenix Suns, I'll be happy. I think that would be a win. I think that would be a good use of the cap space. I'm not going to lie. I'd be okay with that. I'd be happy with it. And I think a lot of people would probably be happy and excited with that if they able to get DeAndre Ayton. Now, there is a report coming out as of 2 hours ago when I'm reporting. So I'm recording this on the night of the 22nd, the night before the draft. So 2 hours ago at 9 p.m., it's reported the Suns don't view DeAndre Ayton as a max-level player and are very motivated to find a sign and trade per Woj ESPN. This was tweeted by Evan Cedery. He is a national NBA reporter for Basketball News. So it doesn't seem like that the Suns want to sign him to that max contract. The Pistons probably are going to now throw that max contract out at DeAndre Ayton, which I believe is at $28.5 million his first year, then raises 5% each year after that. So they're going to offer him the max, I'm going to assume. They're going to go all out for DeAndre Ayton, and they're going to see if they can get him from the Phoenix Suns. And it sounds like Phoenix doesn't want to match. They might try to work a sign and trade. Maybe the Pistons give up Kelly Olynyk, and maybe that 25 first that they just acquired to get DeAndre Ayton. Maybe it's Stu. Maybe it's Kelly Olynyk or Stu or something. Maybe something like that, but they're going to go after DeAndre Ayton. They're probably – I've never felt more confident that they're going to get DeAndre Ayton now. I think it's a legitimate – I think it's above 50% chance now. Before, I thought it was a little bit 50-50, maybe 40-60 he stayed in Phoenix. Now I think it's probably around 60-40 he's coming to Detroit. I felt more confident now with that whole scenario than I have ever before. So that's one route. That will take up $28 million this year. That will still leave $28 million for them to work with. What do they decide to do in free agency with that? Do they then go try to get Miles Bridges too from Charlotte? Do they offer him an offer sheet too? And now you're possibly walking away from free agency with Miles Bridges and DeAndre Ayton in free agency. Could you do that? Possibly. They could possibly do that. They'll have the money to try it. Do I think they do it? I don't know if they go after Bridges. I know for sure they're going to go after Ayton. Bridges, I'm not sure. I don't think they're – if I had to guess now, I don't think they will. So what else can they do in free agency? Well, they can take DeAndre Ayton and they can use that money, the $28 million now, to sign other guys who fit the roster better And maybe not, I don't think they're going to compete for a play-in tournament next year, but I do think now this opens up the door to where they're legitimately going to try to take a big, or maybe not a big step, let me not say big step, but a step forward to where they're now maybe like the 12th seed or 11th seed kind of team, to where they want to see development from their young core. They want to see development from the roster now. So I think that opens the door up for that. So maybe DeAndre Ayton, and who knows, maybe they get another backup center. They can get more floor spacing guys at the guard position or the wing positions. Like, they can do so many things in free agency. They have double the amount of money of the second place team. So the Pistons can dominate the market if they want. Now, again, he can take that route. Troy Weaver, that is. He can take that route, and his signings better hit. Because if they don't, again, Jerami Grant will not only, his time in Detroit and his signing with the Pistons will not only be viewed as a waste of time, but actively destroyed the team if he offers big contracts to people and it doesn't plan out. Because this wouldn't have been able to be possible, really, without Jerami Grant being traded and his book and his contract being completely wiped off the books. So if these signings don't work out and they fire back into Pistons' faces, the whole Jerami Grant signing, a complete wash, and actively hurt the team, actively hurt the franchise. So Troy Weaver, if this is the route he takes in free agency, he has to make sure he hits on these free agent signings. Absolutely has to. No choice about it. He has to hit on these signings, whether it's DeAndre Ayton and Miles Bridges. Heck, maybe it's DeAndre Ayton. I'm just going to throw some random names that I've heard out there. DeAndre Ayton, Jalen Brunson, DeAndre Ayton, Colin Sexton. Like, I don't want those two guys, but if he does decide to go after those guys, now that he got some money, those guys better hit. Or again, this trade and this signing was for nothing. This was for nothing, and it hurt the team. So this was one route that he can go. And if he does go with the let's spend all our money in free agency this offseason, I would like to see him I'd like the team go after DeAndre Ayton, get Ayton if he can get him. And then outside of that, just get some low-key signings. I've said this before. I don't think the Pistons should be splurging on any of the other guys in this free agency. I don't think they're worth it. I don't think they're that good of players. They should stay away from it. That's what I believe. However, they can go and get low-key signings that better fit the offense and make this team function on a more competent level than they were last year. I've read you guys the offensive stats from last year like 5 times over the last 3 episodes. It was historically awful. They were bad on every front, not just compared to like that season, but on all levels, it was historically bad. It was terrible what they did last year offensively. So they could get DeAndre Ayton and then just get a bunch of low-key signs, like maybe Gary Harris to help space the floor. Maybe they I'm trying not to say what I want to talk about in this upcoming segment, but you guys get what I'm saying. I can't talk about I can't say what I was wanting to say without spoiling completely what's going to be talked about in this final segment. But you guys get what I'm talking about. Get DeAndre Ayton, get a bunch of guys that better fit the roster, whether that's Gary Harris or some other guys at the wing, maybe a backup center if they trade Stu to Phoenix for DeAndre Ayton in that signing. Maybe get a better backup center than, get maybe a better starting 2 guard that can space the floor for Cade. Get some guys that can come off the bench and play with Killian and Bagley if they bring him back. So that's the route they can do in free agency if that's how Troy Weaver decides to spend his money that he just cleared up from the Jerami Grant trade. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys want him to get DeAndre in to make some other low-key signs that minorly improve the team on the outsides? Or do you guys actually want him to go after DeAndre Ayton and Miles Bridges? Do you want him to go after the 2 biggest fishes in free agency? That's, withholding that Kyrie Irving does something psychotic and Bradley Beal does something off the wall. I think those 2 guys are the biggest names right now. So, and also James Harden, unless James Harden does something crazy too. But do you guys want him to go after those 2 big fishes and just offer them both the best offer you can with the $56 million in cap? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, we'll talk about the next route he could possibly go because of this trade, and that is the trade market. We'll talk about that after you hear from some of our lovely sponsors. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you have not already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. On our way to 3,000 subscribers, continue to show Locked On. We are the best and fastest growing fan base at the Locked On Network. Okay. So we talked about the Jerami Grant trade. We talked about one route they could go with the cap space that they've cleared up, which is north or possibly north of $56 million, more than double what any other team will have in free agency as of right now. They obviously, some other teams could possibly do something psycho and able to create space somehow. Don't see it happening though. It looks like the Pistons are going to absolutely dominate the free agent market if they want. Or they could try to dominate the trade market. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I know you guys are going to disagree with this. I don't care. We can disagree. I think this is the best option for the Pistons to do. They can go into trade market now and they can take on bad contracts and they can stack up their assets. They can stack up on picks. They can just that treasure chest that we talked about last season. They can just fill that treasure chest with just everything. Keep giving them. You'll just have so many assets that you can then use those assets either one to make more and more picks in the future or in this year's draft possibly, or flip those picks for a player when they become disgruntled and they want out. I'm not going to lie. That's where I'm at right now with what I'd like to see the Pistons do in the trade market. But again, it'd have to be the right deal and it would have to plan out correctly. It'd have to go right for the Pistons for this all to have been worth it. If either two of these routes blow up, Troy Weaver failed massively with what he did with Jerami Grant. Massive failure. So what are some possible trades that they could do? One of them is the one that we've talked about multiple times in the podcast, I believe over the last few days, really heated up over the past week. Gordon Hayward. You could possibly get Gordon Hayward from Charlotte for 13 and 15, maybe Gordon Hayward for just 13. I think that would be a great trade. Gordon Hayward's making around $30 million a year. You get another lottery pick in this year's draft. And again, you'll hear me and Bryce talk about this in the following episode that's coming out like an hour from now. I believe you hear us talk about like in the second segment, I believe. But Gordon Hayward, when he's healthy, he's better than Jerami Grant, much better than Jerami Grant. What Pistons fans and what we wanted, let me just say this. What I wanted from Jerami Grant in the Pistons uniform, Gordon Hayward would serve that and do it much better. Gordon Hayward's a damn good player when he's healthy. Now, the knock on him, obviously, is that he's not healthy. However, this is basically what I'm trying to say. Gordon Hayward is not the level of overpaid contract or bad contract that even when they're healthy, you're mad that you have to have him on the team. Like he's not what's like a. I'm trying to think back to like one of those crazy trades. Like I was gonna say Nicholas Batum back when he was in Charlotte still, but he ended up being useful for the Clippers. But my point is that Hayward, right? Like okay, Russell Westbrook, $47 million. You probably don't even want Russell Westbrook on your team. John Wall, some people may not even want John Wall on your team. Like those kind of offers or contracts. Gordon Hayward's contract's not like that. He's overpaid and he's injury prone, so you have to move him because he can't live up to contract because he's constantly hurt. But if the Pistons were able to get him for 13 and 15, get 2 more picks in this draft, and then out of nowhere, Gordon Hayward's able to stay healthy for you, you're not looking at him as oh God, we have Gordon Hayward on our team, man. Why do we have him? We don't want to play him. No. If he's able to stay on the court and when you watch him play, you're like, damn, this guy's a good damn player. He's overpaid a little bit, but we were able to get 2 extra rookies, 2 extra assets by having to watch this dude play. He's damn good. What's the problem with that? That's what it could happen for the Pistons. So my point is that Gordon Hayward's a good player. If he's playing for you, you're not mad that he's playing good for you. You guys would all be ecstatic. I promise you. If Gordon Hayward were traded to the Pistons, and he was able to even stay relatively healthy, like 60-plus games, 65-plus games, maybe even if he were able to scratch 70 somehow, but 60-plus games, I'm telling you guys would be extremely happy with the dude. The dude is a damn good player when he's on the floor. I promise you guys would love him if he was able to stay healthy. But even if he's not able to stay healthy, you get 2 assets with him, which is the big part of the trade, which would be a big part of absorbing his contract. And next season, he would be an expiring contract, and I believe you'd be able to move his contract at that point to a contender. A contender would take him. So I don't think that he ties up, and his contract expires, by the way, before you really have to start handing out the extensions that you care about. So I'm not really worried about that either. So I think that trade is definitely on the board for the Detroit Pistons. Charlotte's been rumored to already be trying to find a way to get his contract off the books with one of their first-round picks so they can sign Miles Bridges. So if they did that, that obviously would be taking them out of Miles Bridges' run and basically anybody else, because then they would have enough money to do so. But that's one of those trades I would love for the Pistons to do. Get 2 assets with a guy who is not just a bad player who's overpaid. He's a player who can't stay healthy and is overpaid a little bit. He's a good player, really good player. So I'd like that one. What were some other? I'm drawing a blank on some other bad contracts. For God's sake, none of you guys, I swear to God, when I say the trade market and absorb bad contracts for picks or assets, that does not mean Russell Westbrook. If I hear you guys say Russell Westbrook, if any of you guys comment Russell Westbrook, if any of you guys tweet me Russell Westbrook, it will be an immediate block. It will be, I'm not kidding. I will not throw any mercy to y'all if you guys try to entertain Russ to the Detroit Pistons for assets. I promise you, I will block every single one of you who do it. You guys won't even give a response to me. I'll just straight up block you. I don't think John Wall, I don't think that's something the Pistons would do. I don't think that's something they should do either. But yeah, that's the kind of scenario they could be in. You guys get the scenario I'm talking about. I like the Gordon Hayward trade. I would take his contract on. Maybe I saw another trade where the Pistons take on Devontae Graham's contract from the Pelicans. They take on, now this was when they had Jerami Grant. They would be sending Jerami Grant back. But maybe they can take Devontae Graham's contract with number 8 and they send back like Kelly Olynyk or something. Maybe that would work. Actually, probably not, because the Pelicans, if they were getting rid of Graham's contract, I don't think they want to take much salary back. Or maybe they would be interested in Kelly Olynyk, who's contained. But you guys get my point. I'm talking to myself now. You guys know what I'm talking about. So this is the route I'd rather the Pistons take. Stack up on assets, stack up on picks in next year's draft, which I've told you guys over and over is a stacked draft. If they can get multiple picks in next year's draft, I'd be ecstatic. If you can get multiple draft picks in this year's draft, I'd be ecstatic. If you can get multiple draft picks in 2024, 2025, just stack up that treasure chest so you can actually have the ammo to pull off trades, the ammo to go get guys that you want in trades. I would love it. And if you don't even want to use them for trades, again, give yourself as many possibilities as possible to get blue chip prospects that maybe not help Cade make the playoffs in 23 or help him make the playoffs in 24. But guess what? If you get those blue chip prospects, those guys will be helping Cade win finals MVPs in 26, 27, and 28. And that's what I care about. I want to win championships. And what's the best way to get Cade the great teammates that he needs to win finals MVPs is by getting as many cracks at the top of the apple in the draft and getting blue chip prospects that can grow with them and develop with them. So when you get to 25, 26, 27, 28, you guys are now competing for championships with 2, 3 blue chip guys who can contend in the Eastern Conference. That's what I want. That's why I think it's the best case scenario for the Detroit Pistons. But again, like I've said, whether he chooses the free agent market or the trade market, he has to hit Troy Weaver, that is, he has to hit this. He has to hit these right, because if he doesn't, this was a massive failure. And I mean utterly massive failure if he misses on these. Terrible. Because there was trades that could have been accepted after Jerami Grant's first year in the offseason. There were trades that could have been accepted earlier in his second season with the Pistons. There was a trade available at the deadline for Jerami Grant. Now, again, we're being told that he wanted this cap space. Obviously, we're not being told, we see it. He wanted this cap space. He thought this was more valuable. Stack up a few picks in the future, get this cap space. He thought that was more viable. That's fine, but you better hit with this cap space. You have to. Also, there's a final thing I want to give a segment to, or not a segment, just a quick pause to. The Pistons were able to get a first-round pick back in 25. What that does as well, in the trade market, now they have a first-round pick that they can trade. Because if you guys remember, they have a first-round pick that's tied up in that Christian Wood deal that's protected, I believe, 1 through 16 right now. They can't trade it right now. They could trade like 16 to, or they can, right now 16 to 32 is going to, I forget who has that pick. I don't think Houston has the pick now. I think OKC does. So 16 to 30 is going to OKC. They could trade like 1 to 15 part of it to another team or whatever, but they don't have a first-round pick that they don't have to get crazy with in protections to trade. Now they do. So they could use that possibly in a trade in tomorrow, or when you guys listen to this tonight in the draft, and move up back into the first round, maybe get another first-round pick in them teens or something, or they could use it now in player trades. All those kind of things. Again, whether you like or dislike this trade, I get both sides. I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of it. I get both sides. Wherever side you're on, you cannot deny that the Pistons now have insane level of flexibility and can do the right things with it. They have to do the right things, though, or again, I'm going to say it one more time. I've said it like 5 times. I just want to make sure you guys understand. If they don't do the right things with it, this will be a massive failure for Troy Weaver, and I think it's one of those ones that will directly blow up in his face years from now and potentially cause some major issues with the Pistons. If this everything he did here to get this cap space and he messes up with it, massive failure. It could mean bad things for not only the Pistons but Weaver in a few years. I'm not going to lie. So that's my takeaway from the Jerami Grant trade. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. Again, I want to let you guys know that the podcast after this one that you guys will be listening to was recorded like 10 minutes before the trade broke news. So you guys are going to hear in the final segment me and Bryce's opinion about whether Jerami will be traded. Should he be traded? Do we want him to be traded, etc.? You guys would see how wrong and how right some of us were, or how crazy we sound, how funny it sounds now looking back at it. But again, the first two segments I really wanted to keep up. I wasn't going to post the episode, but first two episodes or the first two segments are really good. It's fun stuff. We talk about the draft. We talk about draft prospects we like, potential moves up, moves down. I think it's really worth your guys' listen. And again, I think the third segment, honestly, is pretty funny to listen to now that you see that it was recorded like 10 minutes before. It's funny to see what we were thinking right before the news broke. So that's what you're going to be seeing probably right after this one, literally an hour after I post this one. So thank you guys, man. Thank you for all the support. I've been getting so many messages from people in Australia, people in Europe, people across the country listening to the podcast and showing me support. You guys have been amazing. I love it, man. It's going to be a fun night for all of us Pistons fans. Hopefully it goes exactly the way we want. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button over at the YouTube channel. We're on our way to 3,000 subscribers, continuing to control Locked On to be the best and fastest growing fan base at the Locked On Network. Jerami Grant is no longer a Detroit Piston. The NBA draft is tonight. What's going to happen? Who knows? Have fun. I know I'm going to have some fun. We'll be going live after the draft pick is made. Come over to the YouTube channel and have fun with that. And until then, I'll see you guys later. Go Pistons. Stay safe. Have fun, everybody. Peace out.